It is time now for the Ask the Mayor program here in your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO. And the first week of the month is when we typically talk with Mason City's mayor. And John Lee joins us in studio today. Mayor, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Oh, blessed on a beautiful day like this.
Well, let's talk, before we get into the meeting, talking about that back on Tuesday night. Let's talk about something that happened last week that you were a part of. That's been a great thing that has been put on here the last 3 or 4 years or so. The Civic Speed that happened last week at in the FEMA room.
Yeah, we just completed the fifth year, believe it or not.
5th year.
4 years ago, fifth time.
Right.
I've enjoyed doing that Civic Speed out at John Adams FEMA room. And so if anybody who doesn't know, it's kind of like a spelling bee, but it's about civics, and the kids write papers, they create projects, they spend months studying, and then they come in and they qualify. There's 20 kids that are qualified, and then they are asked 20 multiple choice questions. And I tell you, each year it gets harder and harder. That first year, I believe most of them got like 17 or 18 or not. We were like worried about tiebreakers. This year, they are some hard questions. I teach advanced government.
Right.
And there are probably 3 to 5 questions on there. I'm pretty sure my senior government kids would not have known. They maybe got them on test taking skills, but yeah, they're hard questions.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I did not get to that event last week, but I know him from having been at that event in the past, just watching that part of it. Yes, looking up at the screen and looking at the choices and just kind of like, do I know this or do I not know this? And then
you quiz yourself.
Yeah, you quiz yourself, and then the second part of that event, obviously hearing some of the projects that those kids put together, or those ideas that they want to do for community service type projects, or how to make, city or county or state government better. That's a great part of the process as well.
It really is. And watching kids think about how to make their communities better and what we need or how to get involved. And some of them really understand the process. They know who to talk to. Because one of the questions usually is, so where would you get started? And for them to say, well, the parks department or the streets, or you got to do this with the city council, or you could bypass city council and go this direction, whatever it is. It is a great lesson. And like I kind of mentioned, I got to give the speech this year as mayor as a kind of a double dip a little bit. But I tell the kids, we always telling the students, hey, you're someday you're the leaders of a community. And what I try to tell them is they're already doing it. Even in 7th grade, for them to show up to the Civic Speed, to write these papers, to make the phone calls, you started. Right. You're just not maybe in the position of leadership, but you can definitely take, responsibility for a community. And it's really fun to listen to some of those kids talk.
Well, let's move into Tuesday night's council meeting. And obviously the big story out of that was the rezoning of the land in and around the industrial park that is on the southwest side of the community, southern part of the community, and a unanimous approval of those zoning changes. And first things first, obviously, it's good to see engagement by the community, because
absolutely,
you get to hear that you get to hear from them, and obviously people do raise concerns.
No, I want to give compliments to everybody involved last night, for, against, whatever. It was all done very civically, civil, just responsible discussions, definitely contentions, people, emotionally charged, but it was all done very responsibly. And that's really what we need in this country more of.
Right.
And when people listening, people, engaging, and that's what happened last night. We had 80 or 90 people there last night, and probably, 15 or 20 people spoke. But yeah, there are concerns for the neighborhood, and the council has made it very clear, and city administrator and I have all tried to say, so it's rezoned. So it's open for business, so to speak, and somebody could call and get involved in the process. We can talk about that if you want. But we've all said we will make sure that whoever comes in there needs to do right by that neighborhood. And, can we make it a win-win for the community, for that neighborhood? And I know that neighborhood may never feel like it, but we'll do the best we can.
Going back to the process of how city government works, the 3 readings of a zoning change or an ordinance or whatnot, that's why that's set up that way. That people's opinions can be heard not only just at one meeting and it goes forward and then it's done. There's 3 readings typically for an opportunity to have those opinions voiced.
Absolutely. And, there's actually been 4 readings, so to speak, because you originally have the planning and zoning, right? And they met. And what people don't know generally is, 4 meetings ago at the planning and zoning, the neighbors were there and they said all their concerns, and they changed. They being the staff, they changed quite a bit of that original proposal from a 500 setback to a 1,000-foot setback. Originally there wasn't anything in there about improving the water drainage, and originally people said 5% enough. The city administrator and said no, we'll do 10, and so with 10% in there, and decibels were added. So there was a lot of listening that very first meeting. So when it got to the council, a lot of the stuff that was on there actually was proposed generally that first meeting.
And I know you don't like to waive second and third readings.
No, we do not.
When you deal with an ordinance or a zoning change, and obviously a zoning change, you would not do that anyway, most likely. But I know you're a fan of not waiving readings.
Correct. I've waived probably 3 readings, and I really need a good reason why. And that's usually because you're up against a submission timeline for a grant or something. And then I try to convince myself, well, there was kind of a third reason, planning and zoning. There was 1 and then 2, but it's something I think most of us try not to do because it's there for protection of the public.
And like you, I think kind of alluded to, or if you did mention, just because the zoning is passed does not mean that a data center or any other type of development is going to happen there immediately and tomorrow, next day. And if something comes to the table, there's a long process.
There is. So right now, it's probably a really good time to kind of push pause and just, okay, so where are we at? Well, right now, Alliant holds the option. So if there's any company that's out there, a data center or any other robotics or any other industrial plastics or whatever, they got to call Alliant and say, okay, we want negotiations to buy that land. And Alliant has some really big expectations, hurdles, whatever, that whoever goes in there, they will build out all electric. They will pay out everything that way. And they said they are only working with end users. What that means, there is no developers coming in saying, hey, we want to buy the land now and we will recruit. Nope. Alliant said they were only going to work with the end user. So the companies have to go directly to them. No middle ground, so to speak. And then they got to go negotiations with them. And then they can call the city simultaneously and say, hey, we're working through Alliance process. Can we start working with you? And we will work with Alliance. So there will be a 3-way trying to work everything out in partnership. And then you got to go through development agreements. You got to go through planning and zoning, not planning and zoning, but you got to go through the development, site development plan.
Right.
The fire marshal will be involved. So it's still a long ways away. Even if they call today, and I say that no one's calling today. Oh God, that's what the mayor said on the radio.
Right.
If they call today, tomorrow, next week, or next month, there's still months of planning ahead of us for sure.
And you talk about months of planning, and I think there's maybe a segment of the population, especially in that neighborhood, for some reason, didn't realize that land has been marketed for decades now. And we talked about this with Chad Schreck from North Iowa Corridor last week here on the program. That's been marketed as a potential economic development area for business for quite a long time.
Yeah. We have had that. I mean, it was one of the first goals. I mean, back in 2012, when I came on the council, I never knew what a shovel-ready site even meant. And I remember talking about a shovel-ready site and what do we do? And I didn't even know what that was. And I think that's within my first year or two of city council. That puts us back in 2012 to 2014 or somewhere in there. And so but why this and why people are like, why didn't they go there? Well, again, because the owners wanted to rezone it. And so that's why we're at where we're at. And also data centers, for the most part, do take up a lot of acreage. And the one part we have south of right by the avenue wasn't big enough for the QTS that started this whole thing going down that path. So that's exactly where we're at.
And the one segment of people that came up and spoke at Tuesday night's meeting, the iron workers, and I should have probably known this, but we do have a lot of iron workers here in this
Right.
community that can't stay in this community for their job. Basically, they've got to go to other work sites. And I remember the guy that was the business manager for the local union. He said, they hope to get jobs in Ames because so they don't have to go to Des Moines.
Right. They spend a lot of time in Cedar Rapids and Des Moines. And there's a gentleman, I think last time, who said, he's been living here for 20 years and he's only worked about 2 months of his job in Mason City. And first off, I love that they're here. It'd be so easy to say, you know what, we got to pack up and move. And so, no, it's the union guys really came out and said, these are great jobs. And one really interested and said, he lives in that neighborhood. He goes, I would never stand up here and say, we need this if they're not good jobs and they're not good for communities. And it's in my backyard. And so, so he spoke at the podium in that, and these are really good paying jobs for many union guys.
Anything else you want to add before zoning, before we touch on a few other things?
No, I think we've talked about that.
Mason City's Mayor John Lee joining us here on the Ask the Mayor program here on KGLO today, and talking a few things that were on the agenda last night and some other things that were mentioned during the meeting. And one of the things that was on the consent agenda but got passed without any problem, the council approving a submitting of a grant from the Mason City Police Department to allow the sheriff's office to use some funds to help start up costs of a K-9 unit that would benefit the entire county. And that's something that kind of was absent for a while. And I know Clear Lake got their dog here recently, and obviously the sheriff's department and now the Mason City Police Department interested in getting one as well. And that's just adding it once again to the law enforcement. Yeah,
it does. We're just trying to strengthen, public safety and security. And those K-9 units are very beneficial for a lot of reasons, obviously, but they are very time consuming, expensive. We obviously, everybody knows we're down police officers and we're trying to get more guys on the street. And so it is a great way to partner with the county and help also develop that program. And we have access to it if we need it.
Some of these things that were talked about last night were actually designations that have been made. And one of the big ones, obviously the bike trails and the development of the bike park already paying off in recognition, being recognized as an International Mountain Bicycling Association Trail Town. A great recognition.
That's a great honor. We've worked on trails for the better part of 8 or 10 years. And obviously the last 2 or 3 years, huge. With the last year, even more. And we were recognized as one of 28 towns in the nation to be basically a trail town, USA or city. And only us and Decorah in the state of Iowa are the only two that are recognized. And so I'm excited about that. And I know there are some people who say, well, we don't do it. What's in it for Mason City if you're not a biker? Ultimately, a lot of it is a lot of local option sales tax. It's shocking to a lot of people, but there are people who travel 1,000 miles to bike, and people drive down to Arkansas, and this brings attention to us, brings them in Mason City, and me and everybody else know. I believe if people get to Mason City and really see it, they're shocked and they're surprised and like, this is a great town, and they go home and they tell more people about it. So it's a great designation. It kind of recognizes a lot of the effort staff has put in, the council has done the last couple of years.
Another designation, I know you brought this up to City Administrator Aaron Burnett at Tuesday night's meeting. The Iowa League of Cities, the robust designation, talking about the return on investment of some of the public money.
Yeah, I think that's something that needs to be really recognized. The Iowa League of Cities is an organization who's just their job is to strengthen cities, and they study taxes, they study investments, they look at public dollars, private dollars, partnerships, and they did an equation and they looked at how much people spend and what cities get back on, and how do you do that. And city administrator talked about less money, you got to spend money, but you spend less to get more. And if you can do that, and we were labeled as a robust city. It's actually the highest designation they could give to a town. And so I think that recognizes the work that, again, our staff, our citizens, even our citizens, the volunteer, the people who show up, help volunteer, help grow things, and then use these things. It's a great honor for our city.
Another great honor that the city's had for a number of years, being the designation of being a tree city, and also being recognized for trying to grow the tree population here in Mason City.
Yeah. Starts with Bob Bergeron. You know, Bob was a huge advocate for trees. He won that honor constantly and found the grants, found the programs. And when we found out, it has to be what now 7 years ago when the EAB was coming through, we put a plan in to, you know, take them down, work on them, but also how do you replace them? And we're trying to replace them and get ready for the next one because we all remember what the Dutch elm, and now you hear somebody talk about maples. So it'll be a constant battle, but it is something that's worth fighting for sure to keep that cover.
The council got a quick update on the smart carts, the new garbage and recycling system that'll be implemented later this year, and it sounds like July 6th or the week of the July 6th is the main
that's the goal.
week that people need to start thinking about.
Yeah, and you know, it's exciting to hear that one truck's here and our guys are learning on it, training on it. They're driving some of the routes, especially where we think we might run into some trouble, and we're just trying to learn that process to again make it as seamless as we can, knowing it won't be seamless.
Right.
But that's always the goal, right? And so, no, it is exciting. I think that's something a lot of citizens have wanted for a long time. And we're able to deliver that hopefully and make it as seamless as we can. And ultimately down the road, I think we'll all be enjoying it.
And I keep pointing back in our conversations to the recycling part of it, because I know that has just been such a tough topic that the city's had to tackle the last few years. And now, you know, this is obviously a heck of a lot better solution to try to encourage more people to be using those recycling services.
Yeah, we do want to encourage everybody to do it, and with the 96 gallon or 64 gallon picked up every 2 weeks. But there's a lot more people who can hopefully use it, because a lot of people are like, I don't know what I separate, I don't know what I wash, I don't know what I can't, I don't know. And now it's no, you just get it in there, throw it in there, single system, you know, not your yard waste, obviously, but all recyclables can go in there.
Now, before we wrap things up, I know the next council meeting will be a big one, and you had a special meeting a couple of weeks ago about the budget, the so-called truth and taxation hearing, which, you know, I think we've talked about, you know, since the 3 or 4 years it's been implemented. I'm not quite sure if it's real truth and taxation or not with the statements that people get in the mail. They're definitely misleading. And you obviously had some people that were concerned that stepped up to the podium to talk about things. But, you know, maybe just, you know, talk about that meeting and obviously what's coming up with the budget.
Yeah, our budget's going to get certified here. And, you know, I know according to the way the state reads it and says it, you know, we're a 6% increase on budget. That is misleading. If you look at your dollar for dollar and how the rollbacks come in and all that, it's not a 6% increase. And so they're just somewhat misleading. Dollar for dollar, people will actually pay less taxes for the city portion. I'm only speaking on behalf of the city. Not the school. They can speak for their own, right? Or county or Nyack. But no, that's what we move forward. It's a very difficult process, you know, that's been implemented. And again, I don't want to say I applaud it, but I understand it. I understand why we're trying to be above board. The taxpayers absolutely deserve to know every dollar, where it goes, how it's spent, and the monies they can plan for the next 12 months. But we try to do the best we can with the services that we provide.
Since the legislature has not decided which direction they're moving with property taxes, is that still a concern? I see you chuckling. The people online see you chuckling as well. But I mean, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think we probably maybe didn't directly say it's kind of like, well, they've got an idea. Let's see if they actually get it out of the State House this year. I'm
sure it's frustrating for everybody down at State House too. I don't say it's not frustrating for them, but for us, you know, we're told we had to certify our budgets, and they haven't even told us the money that we're going to get or the percentage we can grow or not grow. And so it's really frustrating, you know, and we talked about it, I think, on here, like by law.
Yeah.
They have to have it certified or they have to agree upon it by the end of January. They've never, ever hit it. They never, ever will hit it. So to me, it's like they should just remove that because this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating. Like, you have to certify your budgets, but we're not going to tell you what hand you're playing next year. And that's a little frustrating. So that's why you do raise your taxes. You try to give you cushion for next year, or the year after, or the 2 years after, because you don't know what's coming down the pike.
Couple of things before we let you go here. Of course, with the start of spring and moving into April, we think about getting outdoors a little bit more. And Highland Park Golf Course, get us up to date on what's going on out there.
So we've had a decent spring, enough to, get Highland Golf Course is officially open. It's up and running. Now all the services and procedures and the daily routine isn't there because of the moisture and the wet. And we are, putting new sprinkler systems in. So you're gonna have to work around some things, but yeah, it's good. The spring's open. That's up and running. McNider, campground. That's kind of a soft opening. They tried something this year for past residents who are coming from the south up through to the north. They could stop in, but otherwise it's open for like scheduling, I believe, next week.
It's always full when you get late June, early July. It seems like, even beyond that. I mean, basically Memorial Day to
Labor Day.
That's usually,
it's a great campground.
There's always a great crowd. And it's people really enjoy that campground.
That is a really nice campground, and obviously I'm never used it, but you walk by it. I live close enough where I'm walking by it seems always full, and people go down to the pool and use the pool. And speaking of the pool, you can buy your season tickets. That's up and running. I'll put a pitch in there for the pool. No price break, but if you go down there right now, I can guarantee you there's not a line. There's always a line the week before. Right. People stand in line and say, it took me 20 minutes to get that.
Well, if you would have done it a month ago, there would have been no line.
Up and running. Go get it. Get that thing started. Get in line right now. So there's no wait time.
Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I know I've talked to Lindsey James. We got June 5th, I believe, is a Friday. That's be the first big kickoff to our Friday Night Live series. Yeah. So get down there, support. We should talk about BandFest coming up. Obviously, Get out, get down there. It is one of my favorite weekends of the year. It's 3 days, graduation this year. You also have the memorial down at the cemetery on Monday morning. And then the following week is the big, we can talk about this maybe in a little more detail next time, but we have the Bike Fest happening May 29th through the 31st. That'll be a big event. We're officially cutting the ribbon and kicking that off, but it's also going to be sponsored and food trucks. And so we got 2 big weekends, back-to-back 3-day weekends for this town and kicking off for Friday Night Lights on June. So looking forward to having a great summer in Old River City.
Mayor, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All righty. Mason City's Mayor John Lee joining us on the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM